Hey guys, today we're in the body shop and we've got this Aston. This is a 69 Aston DBS. This is a all aluminum panel car, steel structure with aluminum panels. But yeah, this car here is actually going to be going to Pebble Beach and the Concourse of Elegance in England. So pretty high-end build, I'll say. Really all that we're doing on this is body work and painting it. It's going to be olive green, the correct Aston color. So when we do a car, really any car, we always focus on gaps is one big thing we focus on, getting them to 3/16 uniformly, and also panel to panel blocking. And that's there's a few shops out there that definitely do, but most shops don't take the time, I'll say, to do this. And that's one thing with a higher end build is there's a lot more time, there's a lot more steps of things. But when I say panel to panel, what I mean is we take a block and we block this from one panel to the next, so you can see how well each panel fits the next. It's a perfect fit from the fender to the door, almost as if there was never a gap there, all the way down. Each panel fits very nicely. And that is one thing, any car, even new ones, they don't fit like that. So that's one thing we do to make sure the fit and finish is, I'll say, perfect on a car. Another thing that we do here is after we've done our filler work through every stage of body work, we will bake all the products with an infrared light. That's what this is here. So then we use a laser thermometer, and you can see we're at about 145 degrees, and we'll leave it there for about 20 minutes. And what that does is that prevents any shrinkage, anything from coming back down the road. When I say from coming back, so sometimes if you have products that aren't completely cured, they will keep curing over time, and that will cause issues. You may have sand scratches coming back and things like that, and doing this process will totally eliminate that in the future. So we do this process after every stage that the car goes through. So filler work, this stage here, we bake everything, and then after we prime, we will let it sit a couple days. We'll bake it again. We'll block that primer out and do any spot primes that need done, any little areas that maybe aren't quite there yet. We'll prime those areas again. We'll bake those areas again. We'll sand those areas again. And then after paint, we typically let things dry for 5 to 7 days naturally, and then we run the infrared bake light over it. And what this light really does, the whole point of it is that it heats the metal, not the surface. So like here, there's not much metal. We've done epoxy primer over metal so that we can do filler work over epoxy. And in doing that, there is metal, there's products on top of metal. And what this light is doing is actually heating the metal and drying things from the metal up, versus baking in, say, a bake booth where it's 140 degrees air temperature. You're drying things from the top in, and you can get trapped solvents and things like that. So as far as primers, what we generally like to do is use the same product from top to bottom. There's a lot of shops that are doing filler work over bare metal, and there is peroxide in the activator for filler. It's benzol peroxide, and peroxide is an oxidizer. It will actually cause rust. So if you're putting body filler over bare steel or bare aluminum, you will have corrosion down the road. It may be 5 years, it might be 10 years, but it will happen. And that's one thing that we are super particular about, is the process in which things are done and the longevity that's going to come with those processes. So that's why we do all our filler work over epoxy, is to have a barrier between the metal and the filler so that you don't have issues down the road. But when we prime, we like to use the same product throughout. So once this car had been stripped and epoxied, it was primed with VP 2050, which is Vibrance lines, PPG's custom line. Awesome primer. We have shrink tests. We've done shrink tests on this primer. It is a great primer in just about every way. We'll have a link to that shrink test on YouTube here in the description on these posts. But basically when we prime, we want uniformity. So some shops will put filler over bare steel and then they'll prime. They may use an etch primer over the bare metal, and then they'll use a 2K surfacer. And 2K surfacers really shrink down a lot. They don't build a lot. They are just far inferior to an epoxy. They may use a spray polyester and then a 2K surfacer, but spray polys are honestly very inferior to an epoxy as well. And this 2050 is a true epoxy, but it's also a high build epoxy, sandable. So it allows you to use the same product throughout the entire process up to paint. When you're able to use the same product throughout, you have less issues down the road, because this car in here right now is, you know, except for where we have the light on it, it's about 70-degree panel temp. If this car, say this was a black car and we pulled it out in the sun on a hot sunny day, these panels could get up to 140, 150 degrees. And when that happens, things move and expand and contract, and they you know, everything expands with heat. And when that happens, it can form what we call a phantom wave, and that's generally caused from different products expanding and contracting at different rates. And that's where a phantom wave comes into play. So if it's out in the hot sun, or if it's out in the 0-degree winter, things shrink and things expand and contract at different rates. So using the same product throughout for every step is crucial to a long-lasting job. And that even goes down to filler. A lot of people that are doing filler work, they're just kind of spreading a glob of filler and putting enough hardener in that they think that's good enough, and it's not uniform. What we do is we actually weigh all the body filler. We weigh everything before it's applied. We weigh things 50-to-1 with hardener over epoxy, and that is very key steps to having a long-lasting, super straight, flat car.